Welcome to another Flashpoint Q&A where you can unload all of the silly questions in your brains and force us to answer them. So it's an exciting time for us to experience that again. We are joined by Emmy and djL of Contact, player and coach respectively. Welcome. It's the first time we've had you guys on the Q&A before. I'll start with a question for you guys, which was your roster change for Snappi after Flashpoint 1, and how do you guys think you're doing as a team now that you've made this change? I know you haven't had a lot of time to play with him because of the player break, but
Yeah, so we brought Snap in like a little bit before the players break, and we played close qualifier for Rio Major qualifier, and we beat Complexity there after a couple of days of practice, which was really pleasant surprise for us since we played with Marco for only a couple of days, and we changed the leadership from me to him, and we've been very happy with that performance. We lost against Fnatic 2-1, and we were out of the close qualifier, but we were pretty surprised with our performance, and we went on a players break, but we couldn't wait to come back and and start grinding again and see what's gonna happen with this roster.
thoughts from a coaching perspective, DJL?
To be honest, like I just joined like 3 months ago, but for sure, like there was some issues I could tell like directly because that's basically why I came in to the roster even, or as to help Neil. And I mean, I think the guys just needed other voice. To be honest, I think Emmy did a good job, but like I think they played together real long, so it can be nice sometimes to get another voice as well. And yeah, I think we're doing a great job, and everyone is motivated. So I think you will see another contact in the future.
And what are the big events that you guys have coming up for the end of the year? And what are your expected, like, how do you expect to perform considering that you're coming off this break with a relatively new player in this roster?
Well, for now we have Flashpoint. We'll probably have a close qualifier for another Rio Major, and I think we have in a couple of days we have I don't know, is it Fun Plus Phoenix qualifier for that Chinese tournament, 300k. We have that as well, and I don't know, probably some more closed or open qualifiers for any other big events that are gonna happen until the end of the year. But we just want to play it all. We want to practice almost every day and prepare for all these hard matches that are coming up.
When is this tournament in China? Like, is the tournament actually supposed to be a LAN?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a LAN, but I don't think that it's gonna happen anytime soon, honestly.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Yeah, but still, if we win the qualifier, we will get some HLTV points, and we aim for that. We want to climb up the rankings.
So here's a question for you guys. Why did you decide on Snappi? They're throwing out Lekro or Alex as possible other additions for European players that you could have added to this roster. So what was the decision for Snappi and why him over some of the other notable free agents in the scene?
at least for me, it was basically like I'm pretty close with Blame F, who plays in Complexity, and I basically just asked him like, how is Snappy, because they played it with each other in Heroic, I believe. And basically I just asked him like, how do you think he is as a leader and things like that. And when we spoke, like I just thought, me and Neil, that it was a perfect fit for us.
Also, Alex cost $600,000.
That's
Just got out there.
I didn't want to say
sure.
You can say that he cost $600,000. That's perfectly reasonable reason not to get Alex. I think no one's going to look down on you and say, "Why didn't you spend $600,000?" And just so you guys know, because I also see questions now about Glaive and Zipnix as viable options for Flashpoint teams. Well, you know what? Let's just put it this way. Remember how Astralis, when they were potentially making a roster move, decided that they were just going to wait out the contract, with Fun plus Phoenix or, the old heroic roster.
For Essetag, you mean? Yeah.
For Essetag, yes. So you remember how they just kind of waited for his contract to end instead of paying a buyout?
Yep.
Sometimes you just got to do that.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the problem is I don't actually know when their contract ends. Like, I believe they re-signed, I think it was like maybe 2/3 of the way through last year, because I remember there was a story we did on By the Numbers or something. But even so, like, yeah, if it's a 1-year contract, people probably aren't going to pay a massive buyout if there's like 2 months left on it. It's just better to wait and then you give him for free, don't you?
Yeah,
in fact, in that scenario, you can even offer the guy more money,
Yeah, exactly. But I'm really happy with Snappi, and I think it will be great.
What do you think Snappi adds to this roster, Thorin?
Well, for a start off, he's, in theory, and he'll say this himself, he's a self-styled fragging in-game leader. And as a team, like they look like they're going more like the FaZe Clan route, trying to stack all the young aimers together. So I could see that being a good fit. He has his own tactical system, and they seem to lack some of that in the team. I think especially because they've got so many young and inexperienced players and players from different countries, so they really have no like shared common ground. Like, it's not like a lot of the other teams you see out there. So I think you need, when you have a lot of disparate parts like that, you need a leader who has like a strong vision and he knows how he wants to play the game. So I think these are things he'll probably got pretty good experience, like obviously above the level of contact overall. Had periods when he was within tier 1, has even been as deep as semi-finals of big tournaments. So he's done some big things in his career. It's not a massive name, sure, but I also think with where he's at in his career, as you saw with when he was going to go make that crazy move to that Tiger team, he's also looking for like a way to reinvent himself. Like, he knows that going and being in like heroic or something as the in-game leader probably is never going to get him any further in his career, because he's done that. He's already been on that ladder. So I think he's trying to find a way to sort of go a different route, and this time it's the international option, and see if he can get to a different level. Because the one thing about the contact team people probably don't understand is, if you look at their ranking now in HLTV, or you saw them play in Flashpoint, you would assume they're terrible. But the actual pieces for the teams around the level of where they're ranked are way better than that level. Like, dude, even one of their star pieces would be in a much better team as the best player. So to me, it's like they've got to make use of that talent. At the moment, they haven't done that good a job, at least with this variant. To be fair, the best players in the team before got bought away. So
you're absolutely right. But as you said, like, I think Marco will bring in like the tactical depth, and like we have a lot of young and inexperienced players that are sometimes they get overheated. They do some moves that they shouldn't do, and it costs us the round. That's the biggest problem. That a lot of times we lose the rounds that we never should have done if they played it properly, and they need to learn that how to deal with it. And I think it will be all fine.
Along those lines, question here is EspiranTo feeling better on the team? Because he said he didn't feel fully comfortable playing on contact yet. Has that changed at all?
And, I don't know if EspiranTo feels comfortable in life in general. The guy's just a fucking whiner, so they'll have to tell me.
Well, Daniel, do you want to answer, or it's going to be me?
Can you turn up your mic a little bit for us, djL?
Okay. You can talk and I'll fix it.
All right.
Okay. So I just don't feel that he's not feeling comfortable. I just don't feel that he's trying his best. That's the biggest problem for him. He's not giving 50% of what he could do, And if he would give 100% of him, I think he would be he has tier 1 aim. That's what I can tell you 100%. But sometimes his decision making and team play and communication are not at the level that it should be on this level of Counter-Strike, Those are the things he should work on, and it's not like you can't do it. It's not like
Sure.
He's a smart guy, He just, if he wants it or not, that's the question.
I mean, I think is it fine?
Yeah,
it's good.
Okay. But I mean, like, I think everyone knows that EspiranTo is a sick player and things like that. But I think we're still like trying to find the right roles in the team. We, like, as you guys said as well, we haven't played with each other that long, and we still are trying to figure out like what the best roles is going to be in the team. So I mean, time will tell how good we will be, but we will for sure try to make it work.
Yeah, one thing I would say is, right, people never remember this, but I always try to reference it as many times as I can. Whenever I'm talking about players, like in the past when Simple was in Team Liquid, or when Nico always plays in international teams, like or Guardian when he was in Navi, etc. When someone's in a team that's not basically at all to do with the region there or country they're from, you have to give them like what we English call leeway, like give them a bit of extra room to make mistakes. Because like think about someone like EspiranTo. He just basically leapt, first of all, from a country that doesn't even have a top team. There's not a single top team for fucking, where's he from? Lithuania or something?
Yeah,
Right?
Lithuania,
Yeah, they don't have a single top tier, vaguely even. They don't even have a tier 2 team that I know. So he's made the leap, not just from there, but to like, dude, he almost made top 8 at a major. So like to go from that level, like that's like just going from like kindergarten to like starting university or something. Like you're supposed to go through the steps, you know, you're supposed to get a chance like at the next level up. And then normally you rise up as a team collectively, you know, so you're with your countrymen, same culture, same way of talking, figuring out problems, maybe even veterans who can help you through your career. He hasn't really had any of that, just like people like Nico haven't that much, you know, in their career once they've got the tier 1. So to me, it's like it might take them a bit longer to get to the point where they've, as we're saying, rounded out their game, so it's more than just shooting people with a crosshair. But if they do it, I mean, you've seen what happens with Guardian, Simple. There's a reason why these people take chances on these guys from countries that aren't actually considered that good in CS. So I think it's understandable why he's had his issues.
Yeah, I could say you're right, but I just think that he needs to play more CS. That's it, and he will be fine.
Also, one other thing I will throw out there is, to be fair, he has played most of his career as a big name in the crazy organization. All I'm going to say is, I'm glad they're not in the crazy organization. I'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it at that. Just don't worry about the game now, boys. Enough said.
There was a comment here about like the buyouts for players just being random numbers, and they kind of are random numbers. A lot of the time player buyouts are not even specified.
They're not based on anything, basically. Yeah, you just pick a number you like.
Yeah, they're not even specified within player contracts a lot of the time. Sometimes they are. Sometimes that's a clause that's negotiated by the player so that, you know, they can change teams if they want to more easily. But a lot of the time it's just whatever the organization feels like selling them for, right? And unless it is very specifically in the contract clause, which it most of the time I would say is not, then it's just trying to test the market and get as much value as you can as an organization for that player's contract, which is just how the industry works. And it, you know, it's a big part of how, especially I would say, smaller teams actually make money by developing players and then selling them to bigger teams. Let's see here. Let's check right now. Here's a good question. How is it having 2 coaches in contact with Neil and you, djL? Is that advantageous to you guys? How's your system set up?
Yeah, how do you split up the responsibilities and stuff? Who does what?
It was hard, to be honest, like from the beginning, because I've been playing myself, but I started as a coach for Red Reserve. Then I was coaching Gamer Legion with Dennis and Nok and Hampus and those guys, but I've never ever been like a second coach or something like that. So it was a bit like weird for me, I guess, when Neil asked me. But to be honest, like it is like we both are the coaches. Like I can say whatever I want. Like I'm on the practice, they listen as much as they listen at Neil. So I mean, like we basically are a trio, me, Snappi, and Neil, and we do basically everything together. So I mean, it's just that I have some different input, and that's it. We're basically 2 coaches doing things together.
How's it worked for you, Emmy, in terms of receiving feedback as a player?
Well, I'm always open to criticism, you know, but since I'm not, I don't have to watch a lot of demos for the whole team, you know. I'm just trying to focus on my positions now. My position right now is like some kind of a lurker and anchor on city side. So I'll be trying to focus and look at the best players on those positions and try to develop my play style, like being aggressive when I need to, being passive and playing for information when I need to, and trying to help the team as much as I can. And I think I've been playing a lot better since I don't have to do all those things that I did before as an in-game leader. But I'm still like giving Marco an input. Like if I see some good strat from some team or good setup, I just come up with it, and I tell him like we should add this, and like it's gonna help us. And he always listens to me, so he can always he can always count on me on those type of things.
It's a question for Thorin. Who do you think would be a good replacement for Bubzkji if you had to pick a player that would fit in with MAD Lions? Because he is now, it's been announced that he is going to Astralis.
Yeah, the problem with that is, like, I mean, based on the actual announcement today, it can be anyone apparently. It can be a fucking Polish guy who, listen, at least speaks English, so there's not like it's a problem there, but they're going to have to switch the whole team to speaking English now. So before there used to be 5 Danes. So if I didn't know Innocent had joined, I would obviously try and pick a Danish player. So I would try and pick, I obviously can't take anyone from Astralis because I'm assuming they're not going to buy those players and they wouldn't want to leave. So if I think of everyone who's left, like, Blamef and Valde aren't leaving Complexity. They're on mega deals. They're in a better team right now. So realistically, you have to pick between people in like North and Heroic or unknowns. And actually, I think the problem there is they've missed the boat on that. Like, people have already made the signings of Tesses and Farlig and these players. So right now, as weird as it sounds, if I had to pick a Danish player, I might gamble on Kjaerbye. I might try giving him a try again if he wants to keep playing. If he hasn't got a team yet, he's obviously running his contract out at North. He's an aggressive player, could maybe fit that role. The problem is, like, I thought personally Bubzkji's playing style was very unique. Like, that's why I was trying to compare him to like Fur, maybe even like a little bit of how like Art plays in Furia. There aren't many players like that. Like, that's the reason I personally think he was such an irreplaceable individual, because like, it's like that type of like aggressive style, you have to have an amazing read for the game, otherwise you'll just throw the whole game. It'll just be terrible. Like, that's the easiest style to read if you don't know what you're doing. So bear in mind, they're not going to get from MIBR. I don't really know who they can get. Like, I have to say, I'm mad underwhelmed with that signing of Innocent. Like, Innocent was an all right player, and a few years back, 5 years ago maybe, he was a talent, but like, you can't, like, just on paper that will never look good. Like, Bubzkji goes out and Innocent comes in. So what do you guys think about this move?
Well, I agree with you. Like, the way Bubzkji plays is really like unique, and there are not many players that can do that things. As you said, like, you can always do some stupid aggressive move and throw the game, but he does it with big confidence, and he knows when to do it. You know, so that's a high CS IQ, I'd say. And I don't know, as you said, every good Danish player has a team already. They've already done the signings, so I'm not sure. Probably, I'm not sure about Innocent, but I think about someone else as well, like that is not from Denmark, you know.
Listen, one that you guys would know and appreciate, because guess what? It's hard to get this fucking guy to write his name on a piece of paper, is Lekro. He was the guy MAD Lions actually was looking at. I know it was a name that obviously you guys were considering a few months ago. So, like, that's not a terrible move. Again, obviously, he wouldn't be the in-game leader now. I'm assuming he'd just be like an entry fragger or something. But I thought Lekro did pretty decently when he was back in the day in Fnatic on that role. Like, that's the real problem here, though, is the guy you're leaving this year became really good. And whoever you bring in is almost a gamble. That's the sad thing about this move, unfortunately.
Yeah.
To reverse that question a little bit, do you guys think that that Bubzkji style is a good fit for Astralis, since it is so specific? And how do you think he's going to slot into the overall Astralis roster?
Problem with that is no one knows if he's even the starter, where he would play, who he would play instead of. That's as we've all noticed, we're all caught in the fucking media sandstorm of Nickel and Ihom. None of us know what the fuck's going on, do we? Like, for all we know, he's the new in-game leader. That's what that fucking Casper Frid guy said. He said, like, everyone should be able to be an in-game leader. So, you know what? Maybe Bubzkji's the new in-game leader of MAD Lions. Fucking Astralis. Maybe they'll win that 5th major. I don't think so, personally. If I had to guess, the logical place you would put him in is probably Dupree's positions. It just seems like the most logical fit. And actually, to be fair, of all the Astralis players, I think the last few years, Dupree's been one of the more up and down players. Like, I thought last year he had some bad times. Admittedly, he had external circumstances that's sort of understandable. But if I was going to replace someone, I think maybe that's where I'd put him, because I can't really see how he's going to be in like Zipnix's spot. He's not going to be an all like device. There's not really that many names left at that point in time, is there? What do you guys think?
I mean, sorry, Daniel, you can talk.
No, but I mean, I think Bubzkji is so fucking smart and a good player. I mean, it doesn't matter what team he plays in. Like, he will do a good job, I believe. Like, that's just how it is for me.
Actually, some demos that I watched from them, I could see that he was playing some Sipnix roles, you know, on T side especially. So, for example, lobby on Nuke as a lurk. So I guess there are some apps that you could actually put him into his roles. So I think he's pretty versatile and he can play any role you give him. But as you said, like he's aggressive, Dupree is aggressive. I don't know how it's gonna turn out, honestly.
I would, by the way, just as a general rule, you should probably do this with most teams. Like CS players aren't like fucking GI Joes. You can't just, oh, I'm going to play with this one today. Like you have to remake the team basically, whoever you pick. So if I was Astralis, what I would do is, I mean, they already had fallen off a little bit with the old lineup. I would just make a different style of Astralis. Don't make it the old team like everyone lurks on the map or whatever. Maybe now you're like Team Liquid or something. Maybe you're super aggressive. They've got the players where they could do anything with that team if they want.
Yeah, I agree.
If you, well, let's theorycraft then. If you could choose the starting 5 of Astralis, but I will put the caveat, you can't choose the old starting 5 of Astralis, so you have to change at least one player. Who would it be?
It's a tough one.
It is tough.
I would definitely not move away Glaive and Sipnix. That's 100%. I would keep them in the team. I guess Dupree, you would say, just because of the roles. Like I would put Bubzkji on his position, and that's it. 4 other remains the same.
Who would you pick?
I mean, it's pretty simple. I would probably do the same. I mean, Glaive and Sipix are the 2 best players at their roles, and I mean, Dupree is one of the best players as well, but Bubzkji will be insane.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that is, like, as they say, just looking stylistically and in terms of even performance, like, Zipnix and Glaive are just amazing role players, and at what they do, they're the best. And then Device and Magisk, at least when they're in form, are just the best players, like in Denmark, basically. So there's not really many people left. This is one guy. So I'm just saying you're not Device and Magisk. Sorry, mate. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people aren't.
To go back to the Kjaerbye answer from earlier, so besides Mad Lions, which you suggested him for, Thorin, is there a Flashpoint team that you could see benefiting from getting Kjaerbye?
The real problem with Kjaerbye is everyone knows his skill is good, but for some reason, ever since basically even towards the end in Astralis, he just was never the same player again. He's never recovered being like a superstar player. I know at some of the tier 2 lands, he would occasionally have like a dream hack where he went off one time, but then he'd go to like, you know, an ESL Cologne and just be like an average player. So to me, I think he could be in loads of teams because he could obviously be in teams where he speaks English. He's fully fluent. All the Nordic players are basically.
Yeah.
The question would just be, like, what would be the right sort of team for his mentality? Like, I actually feel there's maybe even a world where maybe like an NA team could be good for him, and you just turn him loose and just go and frag, dude. Like, don't worry about tactics or your set position, which is kind of the Danish system. Just go and be a fragger. Just like think about all the NA teams you watch play. They just look like they just collect a bunch of aimers and they just go out and just have one-on-ones. Maybe that could revitalize him, you know.
I mean, I don't know if in this season are Existence gonna play like the old Copenhagen Flames, or I'm not sure.
They were qualifiers, so it depends if they qualify.
Yeah. So maybe I would put him in that team to try to reinvent himself. I mean, I don't know if the reason of his performance is lack of motivation and lack of playing CS, or just some, I don't know, psychological problems. I don't know the guy, so I can't really tell. I'm just saying, like, that would be a smart move by him, just to go in a bit worse team where he's supposed to be a star player and he just gets everything done. And if he tries his best, I mean, we could see before he is a major MVP. So, you know.
Let's talk a little bit about coaching now. So how did you get into coaching, and how would you foster new coaches who aren't former professional players who have retired and moved into a coaching role?
That second part was confusing for me, Monty. I think they might not understand what it means.
Let's start with,
as in bringing people who've never been in CS before, something like work players?
I think just like, how do you get coaches who haven't been former pros? Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Right, okay.
So first off, how did you get into coaching, djL? Let's start with number one.
Yes. So basically, how it all started was I played CS, and I was good friends with some Swedish people, Hampus, who played in NIP, and like the first Red Reserve roster basically with Hampus, Freddy Frog, Relaxa, Rusty, and Sidish, and basically we were just good friends who played CS together, and I was not good enough, and they asked me if I could be their coach, So I just started coaching them. After that, it just, I just loved the game after that, and started to learn more, and I started to play myself, and for like 1 year ago, I just said that like I'm going to start coaching again because I enjoyed that the most. But for new like guys who haven't been professionals to be coach, I don't know. I think it's hard. Like I think you need to have like a good understanding of like how to play CS, and how to talk with the players. Like it's a lot of like psychologically like as well, that how you talk with the players, how you are, what to say. You need to have some kind of good understanding how to play the game basically. And I mean the game is developing all the time, so I need to look at a lot of games and things like that. Also you need to find things that works for the team as well. So I mean it was a tough question, but honestly I'm not sure like how you're supposed. I think you need a good understanding, to be honest.
I will say that for people generally who do not have a professional playing background to become staff or coaches in esports, one of the best ways to show that level of experience is to make your own content that is analytical, that proves that you have the knowledge, either through articles or video content. And generally, doing that is one of the paths that you can get into with coaching, and has worked for other
basically
people.
Pretty good idea, yeah.
It's basically what the current coach of Gen G did, Elmer Poddy. That's how he did it. He became famous for, he made like tactical breakdowns of a key round or whatever, and then it impressed someone enough that he got into, I think it was initially Cloud9 and then Gen G eventually. So yeah, that's a route that works. The problem I have is basically, even though people love the idea of bringing in people who weren't players, like I don't know if it actually works very well in CS, because the problem is like in sports when that happens, first of all, even the person who wasn't a pro player, like they usually were around football their whole life, though. They were probably around football like 30 years before they became a coach. In CS, the idea someone's going to come in who barely knows the game or only knows it on a casual level, they'd have to level up so hard and so fast. It's like, I think they'd have to be a very unusual person. Like the analogy I would give would be this. Remember, this is like a business we're talking about, not just having a laugh and then losing the tournament. If I told you I know a guy from India who's just a savant at mathematics, he's a genius, he can figure out pi to a million digits, all in his head, and I said, right, he's never ever invested in and doesn't know anything about business, but would you like him to run your stock account? Now, listen, if that guy levels up and he applies himself, maybe he's a genius and it works in the stock market too and he makes you all the money. But I don't know if I personally wouldn't say yes to that. I would go, that seems sort of similar, but not similar enough. Yeah. I'd rather just get a guy who's a stock market investor,
Exactly.
Depends on if you're willing to take the risk or not.
Exactly, yeah.
But like that is a thing as well. Like if like you said, like with football, for example, if you have seen football for 30 years, maybe you have some kind of understanding. But still, like when you watch the game, you need to know like the small details of why people are doing this or that. Like, and I don't think like many people actually like get a lot of things like that. At least how I feel.
No, put it this way. One thing that famously players have always said to me in every esports game, in every interview, basically I've ever done where I've asked questions about this, is if there's ever a player where they're like, they think this guy's super good and everyone in the community thinks he's just okay, they always say the whole thing is you don't know how it feels when you play against him in the server, like the feeling of trying to go to his position or when he's flanking you or winning a 1v1 against you. So even if it doesn't look that crazy, in the game, you might just feel like, fuck, this guy's way too good. Like, how does he always know where he is? So you're not going to get that sense if you just watch the game, are you? You're not going to have the same feeling.
Yeah. True.
I agree.
Makes sense. Let's switch over to North. So somebody on Twitch wants to know, do you guys feel that the downfall of North started when Rubino decided to leave? And they've been in free fall ever since. So what was the catalyst for North's decline, in your opinion?
How many years ago was that? Like 3?
That was the beginning of 2017.
3 years. I'm not sure if that's the reason. Honestly, I just think that they played for so long together and they didn't have that good results, and I think they just like all of the players got enough of others, and since you have a lot of good teams in Denmark, but all of the good players already have the teams, they're just not in a position to get 5 good players. There's always some part missing.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I mean,
obviously, like I think like as I read on Twitter, I think it was Pimp and MSL were talking like MSL is a sick in-game leader, that's 100%, but like I think you should get like a star player as your upper, not him, honestly.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Even though he won a MVP at DreamHack Masters, was it Stockholm? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and like that was I think that proves that almost any player, if he practices, that he can play the up. Maybe not good as someone else, but to have some okay statistics, you know, I think everyone can do it. And I just think that they should always have a star player as an upper, not MSL as an in-game leader. That's one of the issues.
but basically, you can just look at like Rotoria, for example, like the 5, 6, 7, 8 first highest rated players was only AWPers. Like you can't be average with AWP nowadays. Like you have to have like 1.15 rating or whatever, then you're okay, you know. Like you can't be 1 rated and think that you're doing a great job, because the AWP is so freaking powerful in this game. But to be honest, like what I think is that like I think North had a lot of chances to become like a good team, but I don't think they like wanted any youngsters, you know, like the other teams. I mean, they could have picked up some good youngsters, but they never did, basically.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things there. One, that's music to my ears that these guys agree. Like, I've had that as a principle when I've done analysis for years. Like, you can never have one of the worst fraggers be the AWPer. Especially not if you want to be a tier 1 team. Because remember, that AWPer is then going against the other best AWPers in the world. So, like, good luck when that guy's going against Acorn Device. They're going to eat that guy up. Like, even when Kjaerbye, who was a pretty good hybrid AWPer, that was one of his problems in North. Is like, he was, like, good enough to, like, say, like, the top 10 teams, but then the top 10 teams would eat him up. So it meant that you could only go so far in the tournament. So I definitely agree with that. MSL should just be an IGL. Like, even if that worked that one time, the problem with that is you can't judge someone by their best tournament. What I need to know if you're an AWPer is, show me the day where you're not hitting any shots, but you have to keep buying the gun every time. And in fact, if I'm not buying you the gun when we have it available or saved, you're just not good enough AWPer. Like if I have a sick AWPer, I give him the gun even if I don't get a gun, because he'll get 2 kills. So MSL must know deep down that doesn't work. But to answer the more general question, I actually have a video I'm going to do on this topic, because basically I agree with what Emmy said at the end there. Unfortunately, I think North made the mistake of thinking that they could just find the right mix of like players who basically were of the same generation as the Astralis players, and then they would become as good. Whereas actually, as he said there, all the talent in Denmark came up after them. The only one they had was Valde, and he was basically in sort of the not as good North versions. They missed all the MAD Lions guys. They missed even these guys, Tesses. So they didn't get these. They just didn't look for these guys. And actually, that's a common problem in CS, if you notice. I mean, it's a great example now with someone like Tesses, or how about Grim, who just joined Team Liquid. If you said, who is Grim 6 months ago, dude, I wouldn't even know. I'd never seen this guy play. So you actually can't judge that there's no talent out there. Just because you can't see it now, you need to know where we might be in 6 months. So the reason why I find that so underwhelming is these guys are in the Danish scene and we know they have money. So I think what they really should have been doing was they should have been using some of their coaching stuff, and they should have been from day one scouting all the Danish talent. Have like a big board of them, you know, like this guy's getting close. That way, when someone like an Acor or whatever starts to get good, you don't wait for them to get to your level or better. You get him just before. Exactly. If you get him just before, he's going to be cheap, and then you even own him at that point. I mean, you can create his playing style, develop him, bring him in the team. So unfortunately, North messed up a lot of those things. They thought they could just be, because they had money, another Astralis and just recruit the good players, and they also had some bad luck, to be fair. I think they had a few times where they had a good roster, but it just didn't work out in results, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, like, just look at Farlig, for example, who joined Godsend now. Like, why is why is no one picking him up?
He
you know?
seemed like an obvious pickup to North to me because he's an AWPer, yeah.
Yeah.
I find it weird.
What do you think the logic is behind them continuing to insist on this opping setup for them when you have somebody who isn't capable of doing that, who still can perform a function on the team as an IGL without playing the op position?
Got a perfect answer for you. The problem is, if the person who decides to be the AWPer is the guy who's the AWPer and he doesn't agree with Monty that he can't do that role, and he's the game leader, you shout, can't you? And even worse, as we've pointed out already, normally you could just say to someone, you know, you're not actually good with that. This guy can then just go up, sorry, what was that? Just shining this MVP trophy from DreamHack. So, like, he probably just lives on that all fucking day. Like, when am I going to come back to that form? Never. The answer's never. Let's be real. That was a miracle.
They're in a tough situation, I'd say.
Put it this way, MSL Monty is pretty famous. Unfortunately, his biggest flaw is he's a very stubborn person. Now, that can be a strength. Like, I'm sure it's why he's developed his style the way he has, and he sometimes comes up with stuff that's brilliant. But the downside is he just won't give up certain ideas. Like, whether it's famously like why is he's just never ever going to ever get kicked from North. He's going to be about 75 still playing in the lineup. Like, MSL's an AWPer now. They only ever play like 2 maps. You just pick them every time. Like, MSL's just MSL. He's got his pros and his cons. You just have to sort of live with it if you have him in your team.
Yeah, exactly.
So GMing problems is the answer to the question, it appears. All right. So question for you, Thorin. You made some content around the Chargers mode in CS years ago. Would you be willing to experiment with the Chargers mode with legit teams in a show match?
No. First of all, I think all show matches are boring as fuck. I've never seen a single one that was entertaining, because the problem is the only show match that would actually be entertaining is a real match. Like, if you took, here's a great show match. If you'd have taken right after the major, I mean, this happened anyway in tournaments, but if you could have set it up as like a big spectacle, if you'd have taken Astralis and Team Liquid and had them rematch in like a match for like $300,000, that would be sick. In terms of watching, like, you know, ex-pros or retired players, or even worse, when they bring back old school pros, like, it's never going to be a proper match. Like, it's only a novelty in that sense. Like, it's like weird and fun in that way, but it's not great Counter-Strike to watch. So my problem is if you know Chargers only, it's not a mode you just switch into and know how to play. It's like max rounds. You have to learn like the nuances of like where you do something, where you don't, when to say, when not to. So in that sense, like, unless people play it properly and they're going to play it for like a year and they're all going to play it in every league and it's just going to be the new way Counter-Strike is, I don't think you would even be able to show off, unfortunately, a lot of the positives of it as a game mode. Because what he's referencing, and the reason I made a video about it, is in the beginning of European Counter-Strike, that is how we actually used to play. We didn't use max rounds. So the reason I know it's good is I remember seeing it when all the teams in Europe played that style. So I could see the positives of it. If you've never played it before, you're not even really going to know what you're doing half the time. And you're gonna play like it's max rounds. So I just don't think it would be effective. I know what this guy means. He thinks if it was an awesome show match, you could convince people to change. But sadly, I think that boat has sailed. Like, I don't think Valve would change, for example. So I know that it's a cool idea, but like in practice, I don't know if it's worth the time.
Fair enough. djL,
Yes.
what do you think about the Swedish scene outside of NIP and Fnatic? What are your overall thoughts on the Swedish CSGO scene right now?
I think Swedish scene is pretty rough, to be honest. Like, there is like NIP, Fnatic, and then there's Galaxy Racers, I believe, like my old mates where I played, like Freddy Frog, Relaxa, and those guys. But I don't know, to be honest. Like, I think more Swedish player has started to play with international lineups and things like that. And either than like Bubzkji and Brollan, I would say like there's no like up and coming Swedish talents. I think just Swedish people just don't want to put in the time like to become a good player. They rather just pug and do nothing basically of their time. But I don't think Swedish scene is that good, to be honest. Either than NIP and Fnatic.
I actually have a quick. Oh, sorry. Go on.
You forgot about one team, Dignitas.
Yeah,
which,
exactly. I was gonna say.
There you go. There's the answer.
Forrest for me still is like unbelievable player. Even he is like an older guy. He is still an amazing player to watch. Like, he is one tapping everyone. He's really smart at the game. Like, he is one of the best players ever. If you combine like 1.6 and CSGO with the achievements
and
he had.
Machine. Yeah.
And also
but-
you have, sorry, you can say,
Yeah, but they have a Norwegian player, so I can't say they're Swedish.
yeah, you can say that. They also have a player
but-
in Helzerk who is really good upper. He's a young talent, and I think if they would rebuild that lineup, like they could do something, even with some Swedish guys, you know, like some younger ones, inexperienced. I don't know.
No,
I
but
have
of course,
go on.
of course, like Dignitas as well. I just forgot about them. Like Dignitas for me is Snip, you know. So
Sure.
of course
What-
those guys are sick.
What I would say is, I can't remember if I've made a video about this, but one thing that actually I think I might have actually, because one thing I found really sad is like how the amateur scene in Sweden just doesn't exist in CSGO. Because if people don't know CS 1.6, Sweden was the country with the most talent, because the whole thing is, when you started playing in Sweden, they had LANs every month around Sweden. So what you would do as a player is, you don't have to play online and beat someone. You play them at the LAN. Like, all the top players would go and they would be in like a mixed team with friends of theirs from that area or something. They would be playing a casual. So if you go there and you start tearing it up, your name gets out there quickly. Whereas that's the one thing in CSGO for some reason. It's like we've got the pro scene, and the pro scene's bigger than 1.6, but the like grassroots scene, the amateur scene, just doesn't exist almost. Like, as far as I can tell, those players now, I assume probably just play matchmaking or FPL or something. Like, they don't try to only stay in Sweden and go to Swedish lands and make Swedish teams. So for some reason, that like talent tree fell apart. Whereas the bizarre thing is, if people don't know, in CS 1.6, it was Denmark that only ever had two teams. They always had the one good team and the feeder team. Whereas now what's mad is it's Denmark that has this crazy scene that goes like from tier 1 down to the very bottom. And in every level, you've got a team that's playing tactics and proper Counter-Strike, and you can sort of go up and learn your way into the pro scene. So for some reason, Sweden's just lost kind of its like fountain of youth in that sense.
Yeah, and I mean it sucks because like there is like a lot of small tournaments and things like that, but people just don't like put in the time or whatever. I don't know. Like there's basically no like up and coming Swedish player or whatever, and those guys that are decent are playing in international teams. So I mean, I don't know. We will
Here's
see
what we
what
need to bring back, guys. You guys all made that an insult to call someone a no-lifer. I want loads of no-lifers in Sweden. I want the people who just sit there at 5 a.m. on FPL level 10 or whatever. Where my joke is like, they're better than pros, dude. If I've been with pros and played those guys, you get smacked upside the head, like, because these guys just play 9 hours a night from like 10 p.m. onwards to get all the like easy ranked games. And these guys try harder than a major final. But that's what's good. I also want people from 1.6 who are like potential cheaters making frag movies, because then you just going for all the crazy rounds all the time. Like, that's another thing we had in 1.6. You had all those guys who made those frag movies where it's like they were more famous for the frag movie than they were as a pro. They were like a semi-pro player. That doesn't exist again. It's gone, unfortunately.
What is it about the Swedish scene that changed so you don't have all these like LANs anymore that people can attend on a regular basis? Is there like a new game that's popular, djL, or is just kind of the LAN culture not there any longer? Because obviously it's...
Here's the way to ask, right? If we went tomorrow, djL, to like Inferno Online, most famous internet cafe in Sweden, right? What games would people be playing, do you think?
Oh, it was long time ago I was there, but like I think like Counter-Strike is still popular, but I don't know, like Swedish people are just a bit weird. I don't know how to say it, but like people don't want to put in the time, and like if you say something towards them, they are like babies, you know. Like it's hard to talk with Swedish players, and they just, no one wants to be like everyone wants to be the star players as usual.
Right.
And I don't know, it's just hard, to be honest. Like there's not that good mentality, I would say, in like Swedish players. But as you can see, like there is some, like, you know, like Brolan came up, Bubzkji, like there will be some, of course, but not right now. Just, I don't know, like the mentality is really poor here in Sweden.
Interesting. Let's see here. Somebody says that Sweden does have tournaments, but HLTV doesn't cover them. So
that's why I said before, one of the key components though was because so many like pros would go and be in a mix, the pro himself then sees you play. Whereas as DJ is saying here, even if they have a tournament, no one's watching it, so it wouldn't matter how good you are in that tournament. Like, I actually, because one of the reasons why I was thinking about this is when the guy you were talking about earlier, Nork, came into NIP, and then there's another player where it's like, how am I only finding out about this guy now? Like, I watched him maybe one game in Game League. He was like, it seems all right. But, like, dude, the idea that you go from nothing to just in a top team, there's something wrong with that. Like, that's not a sport. Like, you're never going to be playing five-a-side in the park with your friends in football and then just play for fucking Manchester City next week. Like, that would never happen. But for some reason in CS, we have, like, a disconnect there. And actually, I mean, I could actually tie this into contact. To be fair, that's also part of the reason why I think we also don't have as many like strong national scenes. Is if you are the guy who's trying to be the fragger and you're skilled, why would you wait for your 4 Swedish friends to get good? You just go and join the national team. You just go, right, get a team that speaks English with a fucking Finnish guy and a German guy and whatever, like those old imperial languages, and just see how it goes and try and make it yourself. So maybe it's something to do with modern mentality. Like that is actually in some senses more like the sort of like American Idol, like Britain's Got Talent sort of mentality. You make it on your own, don't you, off your talent. You don't grow with your mates, etc. Whereas, like, actually, people might not know this, but people like Emmy and the guys from Serbia and those countries, like, they came up as a group and then brought the other players in. They didn't just go separate from day one, right?
Yeah. You're right. But I think we will see more and more international teams in the future. Like,
yes.
I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
Seems destined for it at this point in time, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can to chain into this question. Which regions do you think have the most potential for talent? Then, if the Swedish mentality isn't good, and Emmy, you're coming from Serbia, so
Serbia,
I've at least noticed in other games that Serbia, Croatia, a lot of these Balkan states are actually producing a lot of very good pro players right now, not only in CS:GO but in other esports as well, League of Legends in particular. Is there something that's happening culturally in these countries right now that's making good pros?
First of all, like all of the countries you mentioned, they don't have a lot of there's no scene, literally. You could say that. Like, we don't have any LAN tournaments in Serbia and probably around as well. So, like, it's good that we have some countries next to us, like Bosnia, that we speak the same language. Like Nico and Hunter are from there, so we can combine those players into one team. But you have Perks in League of Legends, right? Who is in G2, but other than that, you have a couple of more maybe players. So I don't think there's a lot of professional players in this region, I'd say.
There are actually some more that are coming up now who are
maybe,
rookies.
but maybe I just don't know them. That's
everyone just know about Perks.
Yeah, Perks is obviously the most famous one.
Nico is up there, right? Like, for me, Nico is probably the best player, but he's not in the best team. I think he has the highest skill ceiling from all the players, including Simple and Zaivu, because I've known him for so long. He's my friend. I've played with him for so long. I watched him grow up, and I'm objective. It's not like I don't really mean it. I think he just doesn't have the best team that are winning trophies.
Sure. It's not an unreasonable argument. One thing I would say is, like, when I think of regions with talent that haven't developed them enough, I've got to go Russia immediately.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Like, these guys know that. So, you know how in North America, there would always be times where they'd have an online qualifier and you'd see, like, what the fuck, like old Complexity qualified to a LAN with like all those bad players. Like, what the fuck? And then you go look at the qualifier and they'd have beaten like Team Liquid or like MIBR to make it. And right, that seems like, oh, that's tough. Dude, we have an even worse one in Europe, which is when you're in the online qualifier. It's the one where you play like 10 matches and you're looking through the qualifier like, right, I might have to play them or them. You look past the random Russian team you don't know and you never fucking make it to the rest of that qualifier because they come in there. They're all like, they look like they're all simple. They're all just fucking open you, just wrecking you, super aggressive, playing total like abusive Counter-Strike, and you're just out of the qualifier. But the problem is, these teams don't win the qualifier and go to the LAN. They never become top players. And half the time, you're just like, who the fuck are these guys? So I think that region has loads of talent. Like, people think it's just Na'Vi. It isn't. Dude, there's talent in that region for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what they say, like, that happens so many times against teams like that. That's just how it is.
Why is it that you think that these Russian players aren't getting picked up, or other teams aren't trying to sign all Russian rosters then to develop the talent?
I mean, there's a few reasons. One, if you notice, no one in the West wants to sign a Russian team because the logic is, like, it'd be way harder to market them, like in America, for example. Like, if anything, you want to market them in CIS region, which is a big region itself. Then secondly, So if we're talking now CIS only teams, if anyone follows the stories of Na'Vi trying to put competent players around Simple, whose job was like, just don't die and let him please win the game. And they just could almost never do this. Like, one of the problems they've had is, even when the talent comes up in a Force type team, they can't get them. Like, I don't know why. Somehow they got Electronic and that was it. They could never get like any of the good players in Force. They couldn't get the players from Team Spirit. So unfortunately, I have the suspicion within that region, it's a bit like what's going on in Brazil right now, where even when MIBR was better than Furia, there was just no way to get the Furia players. They wouldn't leave. The coach wouldn't let them leave. The owner wouldn't let them leave. No one would do a buyout. For some reason, there's like a weird sort of freeze out like that in the CIS region, because otherwise Na'Vi, by all rights, should have had all these talents if they wanted them. It should have almost been like the old school 1.6. You just pick the guy and he comes to your team. So, like, there's that. And then thirdly, I would say that's a region I think has a massive lack of in-game leaders. Like, they have too many players who think they're the FPL player. And they're all just, like I say, the ones that beat you in the qualifier, it's always just people playing mad aggressive. And the thing with that is it can work one time to win a game. It's not a very good style overall, though. Like, you need to actually have real Counter-Strike eventually. You've got to have some rules and tactics and logic to the game. So, unfortunately, if you have loads of players, NA had this problem for a long time. You have loads of fraggers, but you don't have the other players, you don't have the other roles. So until you get them, you're only going to go as far as the fragging takes you.
Yeah, you're right. They lack good djLs, pretty much, I'd say.
Cool. Let's see here. Do we have any other questions? Somebody says CIS teams usually have insanely high buyouts, which might be the problem.
Probably true as well.
Yeah, getting
Yes,
all of these.
I heard that
together.
as well. Yeah, that is true.
Hey, that's the other thing, by the way, I should probably have mentioned. When Na'Vi would go to these teams and be like, can we have your player? They were like, sure, for $700,000. It's like, motherfucker, that's what like Simple cost last year. Like, we're not paying that for this guy. Like, so there's the problem, isn't it? The problem in that scenario is, even though you said before, Monty, that's actually the disconnect, in my opinion. In theory, if you're the team who's, if here's the thing, if you're North and Astralis offers for your player, maybe you don't want to sell him because you're at the same level. But if you're like a team we've never heard of and Astralis offers, you should want to sell the player because you're never going to get that much money from anything else. The problem is, in these scenarios, the owners of the teams just choose not to get the money, basically. Like, that Furia guy could probably have had $1 million for most of those players if he'd wanted to from MIBR. Whoever the fucking Falls guy is could have had a lot of money for some of those players. But in these scenarios, this is why I think the buyouts are out of control. Sometimes the org owner just says, I'm either going to make like all the money or I'm not doing it. And if you won't negotiate, it's going to be really hard to do business with someone. Like, you've got to the concept of negotiation is like compromise, isn't it? Like, I'll give up a little bit, you give up a bit. We both get what we want. These owners just want like all the money or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends who the owner is. Like, I think Forza's sponsor is Lukoil, like oil company. You know, I guess they have so much money that they just want a successful Counter-Strike team, not to sell their best players to some better teams. As well, Fury, I think one of the investors, Neymar, actually.
Yes,
sure.
So I don't think money is the issue there. They just want a good team with good players.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone knows it's only Flashpoint teams like MAD Lions that just give away their best players for free to the other teams. So, we're just a very generous league. That's obviously, it's obviously lovely people in there. Probably some would say.
I just consider Flashpoint now the Astralis feeder league more than anything else at this juncture. I think also when it comes to those teams, a lot of the owners, they either want the money that they couldn't possibly turn down, like a ludicrous amount of money in these buyouts, or they want those players to continue playing as much as possible because they have this what I would call delusion that they can use these players to eventually become like a top tier team. Because the issue, if you're a team owner right now and you're trying to break in, is like, how do I attract enough star power in order to have a competitive roster at a global level in this game? And so if you have an asset or a very good player, even if we can sit on the outside and say objectively this player would be better on another roster, or we would have better Counter-Strike if we could move this player to a different team, they're just going to hold on to that person as long as possible under the hope that they can use that person to attract other people later on or develop that talent. I think a more realistic approach for many owners is like, accept that you're never going to be a tier 1 organization and commit to developing talent instead, and just turn it into a business of selling players to rosters as you discover them, right?
Yeah.
Problem is, no one really knows how to do that. There's like 102 other people who figured out how to actually find the next talents. Like that's also why they charge so much. Because if you give away a player, like I'm obviously not going to go as like as ridiculous symbol, but even like a player like the best player in Furia or something, odds are the next Brazilian coming in is nowhere near as good as like Kjaerbye or something. So in that scenario, you also are basically saying I'm going to let my team be worse. So if they're going to be worse, I better get $500,000. That's the thinking they have at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And it's the only claim they have on any kind of relevance. So it's not like they're going to be a Team Liquid who can always attract players because they have such a good name and brand within the scene, right?
All I'm going to tell you is these guys, when they were in the organization I referred to earlier, called Crazy, when they almost had like a really sick run at the major, they were pretty good, but they didn't quite finish it off, you know. If you just saw the way the owner of that team was tweeting, doing interviews, like, dude, this guy thought it was a movie. He thought he just like had the pipeline for CS and he was going to make the next champion. Like it's exactly what you're saying, Monty. He was just living in a movie. It's like, you're not though, dude. You just sold the players. Like they're gone. Like there isn't another fucking hunter coming through the door, is there? Like the next guy's going to be all right. Like, let's be real. See, I didn't get mad at that guy, believe it or not, Emmy. I know he's definitely done some shady shit, but I just enjoy him as like a fictional character in a movie. I'm like, this character's fun. Let's bring him in another scene. He's got some trouble.
I don't want to talk.
No, one day we'll get into all that. One day, a few years from now, we'll open that door.
We'll see.
Quickly, there was a question earlier about open qualifiers for Europe for Flashpoint 2. Yes, there will be open qualifiers for Europe for Flashpoint 2. It is part of Valve. First off, we like having qualifier teams. Let's start there. We would do it anyway because it's interesting and fun. But second off, Valve requires everyone to have an open part of their circuit. It's really key to Valve's way that they want to operate Counter-Strike. So yes, we will for both of those reasons.
And by the way, of course, we like qualifier teams. One of them finished third in our fucking tournament. Like we need qualifier teams to get these guys in fucking gear so they actually get the good players. We need a bunch of random Finns to just roll up drinking Red Bull, just fucking knock them all out.
That's right.
Ciao, taboo.
And also, for those of you asking, we're currently looking at dates in November for Flashpoint. We were looking, as you may have known, at September and October, but there are some...
There's a company called Valve who plays God.
Yeah,
that's what all needs to be said.
Sure. I'm just not sure if stuff has been announced yet, but there are like
it hasn't.
Yeah, there's like more RMR events, obviously, as we get closer to the major.
So wait, is Flashpoint starting on November now? Because I thought it started September.
It's not 100% confirmed, but put it this way, it won't be in September because that's when the RMR events are. It overlaps, so you just can't be then.
So after the major is the answer.
Yeah, there you
go. To the question.
Okay.
If it happens.
Yeah.
Well, we can't even answer any question straight as a million if, X, when possible.
Yes, and hopefully the major will not change in terms of its schedule. That would be nice too. But yes, it is. Everything is. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but everything's kind of fucked this year. So we're doing our best here with the information that we have, but it has not been easy.
I mean, isn't Brazil second highest coronavirus?
Yeah. Doing well.
I don't think the major is going to happen in Brazil. I don't know anything, but if I had to guess, I would say that the major is much more likely to occur not in Brazil, and who knows if it's going to be online or on land with no audience. I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I would not put it in Brazil right now.
I mean, if I would guess, it will probably be online, so that's just how it is, I guess.
Yeah, but major online, it's, I don't know. It's tough. I mean...
Dude, I don't want to live in that world. I'm just going to say it right now. I don't want someone going like, and your major MVP is Xantares. Like, I'll just go like, you know what? It's fun, CS. Close the door behind me. I'm off. I'm going to fucking like Valorant or something. Everyone's in Valorant now. Come on, it's over. CS is over. Because the problem with that, by the way, if people don't know, jokes aside, when I think of people like Simple, Guardian, who have like Nico, who have been killing themselves trying to win a major, even if the player, like for all I know, maybe Big is the best team, but we can't know. So the thing that would suck is if they got to win a major because it's online, it would sort of fuck the history of the game, wouldn't it? Like think of all the great players and never won one. It means a big deal in CS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
let's wrap up with this question then, from me. Why even have a major this year then? Like, what's the problem with just saying we're not going to have a major in 2020?
I mean, if I would choose, I would never have a major online, but it's not me choosing, but I would wait for at least until next year, I guess, with the major.
God knows when this is all gonna end. No one has an idea when we're gonna have a normal life again.
Also, let's be real. The other part about doing it as an online one, which is the reason why I don't think they'll even consider it, is how would you even do it logistically? What, we're gonna have 4 majors. By the way, there's another reason. I'll tell you what. I might just. I'm only joking about this, but I'll just quit CS straight up if they have a fucking major that NA has its own NA only major online, and then
Imagine
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then CIS region. No, the joke there would be CIS region would get their own major, and then someone wouldn't win that, would he? You'd fucking lose that one because it's online. You never get a major.
But I mean, if that happened, that would be so.
It would be whack as fuck, wouldn't it?
So bad.
This is actually a relevant question. Have you thought about having Flashpoint in South Korea? If it wasn't Counter-Strike, maybe, but the problem is like the time zone's so whack for the North America and Europe. We would have to do it at a very weird time to capture the majority of the viewership. But
you're talking about just turn on the view bots.
Just turn on the.
Seems obvious to me. Yeah. You already do that anyway, Monty.
We do. It's true. But yeah, I think like it would be great to have the major in South Korea. That would be an option. It would be great to have Flashpoint in South Korea. I personally would love that. I would love to go back and have an event there, but I just don't think that with the view, like we would have to be broadcasting in the middle of the night, which would suck a lot. And the players would have to be playing in the middle of the night, which would suck a lot for the players. So
I think in the future, though, it could be a cool location of like one Flashpoint tournament or something, you know?
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, I think just because having those Asian events is very difficult on time zones for the majority of Counter-Strike's audience, which is in the West. So bummer, because I would, if you ask me, would I rather be in Korea right now? The answer would be yes. So that would be nice. Okay. Well, we've used our hour. Thank you for joining us, Emmy and djL.
Thank you so much
for the Flashpoint Q&A. Thanks for your questions, guys. We will be back next week with more.